are seeing gaps. You know, this is not the, like I said, not the only data point. Our teachers give assessments when kids don't even realize they're being assessed in class all the time. And in every staff meeting, we're talking about kids and, flags that are being raised with kids who need extra support. So this is just part of all of that. Again, then we also want to be careful about not over testing and not being the driver of everything that we do.
I really think that, that our students who are EL students, their scores are significantly lower, and that's what we're focusing on. And I think it's gonna really help. I think it's gonna take a few years to actually see all the work that we're doing. Because last year, most of those kids came in new to us, and a lot of them came in, halfway the year. And so we didn't have much time to work with them. I think with some of those kids, it's gonna take, working with them in kindergarten, in first grade, second grade. And then I think that those scores, when they get to third grade, are gonna be stronger, because we're gonna have that consistent program. And we really are focusing on addressing their needs.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more board discussion? I will go out for public comment. This is just a discussion item, those who are not taking any action this evening. Next one. Okay.
I was just curious, you mentioned that a number of trying to understand the ELL score, how they, given that you had a number of kids that came in mid-year, how many, like percentage-wise or number-wise, how many started the year versus how many came in later?
The ELs?
I can't be quoted on this specifically, because I did this calculation a few months ago, but from memory it was about half.
About half.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's important to share this, but my daughter transferred from a very different program as a 5th grader last year, having not had really any of this approach to math. And so all of her schooling up till coming to RVC had just been an entirely different mathematical framework. And so RVC did this fantastic job of, like Chris was saying, backfilling, but also teaching her grade level. And I think she rose, a grade level or 2 over the course of the year. And I know that she also has peers that transferred from similar programs that also were just really brand new to mathematics in this way. So I feel like it's not an EL category, but it's a special different category for older transfer students who came from really different programs.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. That's great, a lot of great information, and I'm really proud of what was accomplished in what was a year of doing a lot of things, and so we did amazing things with our students, and we should be really proud. All right. So the local assessment indicators, initial discussion.
Right now there's actually not much to discuss. I just letting you know this is happening. I didn't really have the time to prepare all of the work that goes into this to present something to you, but all charter school districts, they have to present as part of what's called the California State Dashboard of results and how we're measured as a school. So, the state looks at multiple areas, and there is this point in November where we report on our local indicators, and these are things like access to curriculum. Do we have credentialed teachers? Do we have textbooks? Are we teaching to the standards? How engaged are our parents? And what kind of school climate do we have? We have some early indicators on those things, but and all the data that we do here is a self-assessment, but it's a good look for us to have. Are we meeting the state priorities? And so at our November board meeting, we're going to discuss all those indicators in detail. We did it last year, if you remember. And we have to do it before November 16th.
We just have to,
Yeah.
we just have to approve the indicators, or we have to approve where we think we stand on all the indicators
We have to approve where we think we stand on all the indicators.
by November 16th.
November 16th.
So, are the indicators set? I mean, we
The
choose-
state chooses the indicators.
Really? The local indicators? We don't choose the local indicators?
They are not chosen locally.
Are they similar to last year, do we know?
They're the same with some minor tweaks. So the district will be doing this, either this month or
That's
next
too
month.
bad.
Yeah,
I mean, I hope that, as we have time, there's a whole bunch of stuff on our progress reports that measure things that are, I don't remember what we call them all, but, there are key indicators of what it means to be an educated person. And those are all in the progress reports. And I hope that we have eventually develop some mechanism of reporting those out, at least to ourselves, so that we keep in mind, so that they are front of mind, they're part of our petition.
yeah.
And we really need to be, I didn't really know that the local indicators were not in any way local. They're just locally evaluated.
Yeah, there's, and part of it, if you look at like school climate, they don't tell you how, what questions to ask that is supposed to come from kids. So it's, there are questions we ask our kids on
I know,
things at school.
but I just hope that we can, I mean, the progress reports that we have,
Yeah,
they can be boiled down and quantitatively evaluated in terms of what we think an educated person looks like by the time they graduate from here.
Yeah.
And, some of those are academic, but a bunch of them are not.
yes.
And the progress reports is simply the teacher's evaluation of where that kid is, which I think of course it's important in the parent-teacher conversation, but I think it's also important in the larger.
Agreed.
So I hope we can
Use some of that.
find a way to build a spreadsheet or something to report out on that stuff. Because I think it's just as important as this stuff. This is stuff that's not more important, but it's also not less important.
Well, those are the things that we've said that are important to us,
Yeah.
right? And so I agree, I mean, I think it'd be great if somehow the board could hear, I guess, your self-evaluations on how you think.
Well, that's in the
That's
progress
right.
reports. I
Right,
mean,
but we don't see that though.
I
That's
know,
what I mean,
but
like,
they could be,
how do you summarize that,
they
right.
could be added up.
right,
Mhm.
right, I
and
mean, that would
displayed
be,
just like these are.
right,
And that's something we wanna do. It's not
in
easy to
progress.
measure, but
Yeah.
it's measurable.
Right.
Yeah, and we do measure it,
Yeah.
and we put
You
a
have it.
value down, I can't remember what the categories
Right.
are, but they're like,
You have
needs
them.
work, good, or, there's 3 or 4
Right.
categories.
Good and darn good.
Good.
And those can be, those can be put up on charts just like
Yeah.
that.
Right.
Well, let's hope that we we don't put more time into this than it gives us in terms of value.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and this is really just reporting that it's coming, so I don't know if we need to spend too much more time on it. Any public comment?
Yeah, I put it on the agenda because I was under a misapprehension
Okay.
of what it was.
So this is for you, Connie.
All right, thank you. Okay, we will move on to our wellness policy.
Wellness policy, this is part good idea, part compliance. The good idea part of this is just us looking at how we as a school take care of our kids and staff as far as health.
Mhm.
If you look at things like food, nutrition of food, and physical development. And so there's this policy, and the other part of this is that if we are to ever become part of the National School Lunch Program, which we're evaluating doing, we need to have a wellness policy adopted. So I took what was mandated and tried to also make it true as possible to who we are as a school within the framework of government requirements. So it's
Great. Any questions at the board level on this?
I have some comments.
Mhm.
One thing that we had decided last year, and I think that we're all following through with it, is to not have birthday treats. And I didn't see it, I was trying to read through it, skim through it all, I didn't see it in there, but I think that's worth
There
adding.
was something on there about birthday treats.
It was
I thought
there.
there was.
I'm like I said, I
There's something on
skimmed through it, I was short
Cause
on
I
time.
saw
I didn't
something, I was like, wow, that's different when my kids are little.
Well, yeah, but, it's not 25 cupcakes a year, right? So, and I think it's important to say, we don't.
Do you
need
do
to-
any kind of treats, like can they bring fruit or anything? or anything?
We just celebrate it in different ways.
Okay.
We don't make food be part of it.
Okay.
There's also such a concern about allergies. We have a lot of kids with very severe allergies, so it's just easier to not have to do that,
Yeah.
to have food and go, oh, this kid can't eat it, oh, do we have an alternative snack, and oh, is he gonna feel bad and all
It's
that.
like Miss Rebecca's class, they bring a plant. And,
Oh, that's cute.
yeah, and name
that's
the
a good
plant and
idea.
talk about the plant.
Oh, that's cute.
In my class, we have a collection of rocks, and when it's the birthday person, when it's their birthday, they choose a rock out of it, and then we
Oh.
pass the rock around, and everybody gives them a wish or an appreciation.
Oh, that's
or-
great.
Yeah.
From Chris's pet rock collection.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, we just have different ways of
Mhm.
celebrating.
Okay.
The other thing, a couple other things. One is, some of our classes do cooking projects, like we cook every Friday. We have a group of kids that cooks a snack. And I didn't see anything in there about
No.
that. I personally tell the kids that they can't be desserty, We had chocolate covered strawberries last week, so I guess that's, But, the minute you go with sugar, they go all sugar. They want nothing but sweet treats, which we've seen in some of the other classes. So I think that if we're gonna do this, we need to make sure that those kinds of projects are also nutritious. Like, I always make them have fruits or vegetables or something nutritious in it. So I'd kinda like to see that added. And then a couple of things that we just need to make sure we remind staff on is no food is rewards, which I don't think any of us are doing. And then fundraising, it's very rare for us to have a bake sale, but according to this policy, we shouldn't be doing that. And then, it said recess should be at least 20 minutes a day. I think that's really low for us. We
Yeah.
do much higher than that. I don't know if we need to put that in. And then the last thing is no withholding recess from kids. And
I
think-
really appreciated that.
I appreciate that, and I also know that it's kind of tough, because there are times when a kid, gets into a situation and we say, well, we need to talk that through during recess. That's, how do we handle that and still let them have their fresh air and their
Yeah.
exercise and whatever. So I just think it's something we need to have a discussion about, like,
Yeah.
how do we do that to make sure that kids are getting the exercise they need and, having no consequences of having their discussion or whatever. And then there was one more. On page 7, it says that kids should be allowed to bring water bottles. I think we should say encouraged to bring water bottles, because I know I really appreciate when kids have it right there with them, don't have to be getting up to go get drinks of water.
Yeah, and
Obviously
we don't-
need
yeah.
water.
And we don't really have much, we have one drinking fountain in the hallway. So.
Right, and nothing outside, so it's challenging. It's nice if kids have their water bottle. Not all the classrooms have sinks, so they can't always get water in the classroom either.
Great.
There it is, it's on the
Okay.
comments.
Thank you. Anyone else at the board level? No? Okay. Is there any public comment on this item?
What about sunscreen? Would that be under this policy? I mean, I don't know how you would even do that, but.
Sunscreen's a tricky one because in most senses it's counted as a medication.
Yeah.
And so technically schools have to have permission from parents to apply sunscreen to their child. And a sunscreen has to be provided by that parent.
Okay, what about like encouraging kids to wear hats if they have them? Is that,
Sun protection.
yeah, sun protection.
Great. Thank you.
Does that plan also adhere to your after-school programs? Aftercare?
Yeah, which may need some work.
I just saw them cooking some really scary things the other day. Oh, that's really red.
All
The
right.
great thing is that aftercare does eat up the
The
leftover
leftovers, yeah.
fruits and vegetables and salad, which is great.
And all that good earth food.
Yeah, all the leftover good lunches.
Another cool thing to see about the school lunch is that I remember at the start of school last year, the salads just got rotten every day, and the other kids never ate it. And now the kids are just so used to having salad every day, they eat it. Most
We
of
used to
them.
never touch the pesto, and now we run out every time.
Now you're upset because of it.
It's not good for me.
Okay. Well, thank you for working on this, and so, we will take all those comments into consideration and bring a policy back at the next meeting, for adoption. And just as a reminder, we can always modify policies later, so if we, once we get one in place, if we decide that we wanna still make changes to it down the road, we can continue to do that. Okay, next item is, our facilities use agreement approval. And, this was an informational, a little bit of background for people who maybe wanted to know what the, what's been going on since we agreed on our approval, and this is in relation, a lot of it, to our residency form, which we had a little bit of conversation about in the question and answer time before the meeting. But do we wanna have any more conversation?
Well, I think, everything that I have to say is said in that write-up, so I think it's a good idea that, I should have done it in the last meeting, or approve it, and be clear what it is we're approving in terms of the residency form.
Yeah,
So that's why I put it on the agenda and put that write-up on there, because the district keeps sending emails as if we didn't sign an agreement.
yes, yes. And we have been providing the forms as we're supposed to for the deadlines,
Right, and
so.
that's, it's coming up here in the next
Yeah.
couple of weeks.
Mhm. Okay, any more discussion about
Wait,
that?
what's coming up the next 4 weeks? I'm sorry.
We have to submit the proof of
all the
residency
forms.
forms.
For this year.
So have we,
We've been collecting them from parents, and then we'll submit them all at once to the district.
well, the district is still saying we need to use the one that we didn't approve.
Well, Terry Lauer is sending emails, I don't know what the district's really doing. So, we responded back saying, as we said last time, we sent an email, please have your lawyer contact our lawyer, they've negotiated this agreement.
Okay.
This is kind of a semi-personal comment. Last week I had to go to the DMV.
Oh, yes,
Yeah, to get.
you need less information for the DMV, even for the real ID
Yeah.
than you do for this.
So yeah, I had to get the real
Yeah, we
ID,
did
which,
that too.
you have the choice between getting the real ID, which if you wanna actually have a real ID
Yes.
going forward and use that for the
Yes.
go board an airplane, or
Mhm.
in some states boat. You have to go to the DMV and provide a couple your social security card and a bill, which could be a cell phone bill
That's
or
right,
anything which
and
is allowed
emails.
by the state.
And only one,
And then I have this ID.
yeah.
And then I'm just kind of perplexed by the fact that it's more difficult for a family to prove where they live for their kid to go to school than it
Than to
is
get
for
that.
me to basically have access to anything.
Right. No, I find it very ironic.
Well, there's actually state law about this, and most of the districts in Marin don't follow it.
Right. Yeah, I went and looked at it.
Because it's, how is it different? It's more minimal?
Well, the state law says that a parent can submit any of 7 different types of proof of residency, and this district and many other districts in this county don't provide that. They limit it to a smaller number.
Or multiple ones, rather than just
Right.
one. Right. Okay, so here we are, that's kind of the explanation of where we are and
Okay,
the process.
Can I ask
yeah.
another question? So that's one aspect that is sort of
At issue.
that issue. But there's also that whole pro rata share errors, because that's also impacts last year as
Right,
well as
so-
this year, that is still not in agreement, and.
So Mitch is not willing to sit down with me yet, for whatever reason, and go through these, What happened is, the district made they made 2 significant mistakes in calculating the pro rata share last year. They counted for the gym, they counted the outdoor covered area,
Mhm.
which is like 1,700 square feet, which is clear from their own numbers. Somebody made a mistake and picked the number from the
Well,
wrong
I mean,
column.
you could see how that could happen.
Yeah, easily. And then in addition, they left off, about 8 classrooms or 9 classrooms, from Wade Thomas and Brookside in calculating the total amount of square feet, which is used to create a denominator.
Mhm.
It's in the math.
Yeah.
So there's a clear errors in it, and then, of course, they also didn't include any square feet from the surplus property space, which they do maintain. They maintain at a lower level, so
Mhm.
it's reasonable that they wouldn't count it all, but anyway, so that's, that's been pointed out to them since, last spring. And just recently I nudged Midge and I called her to talk to her about it, and she said she wouldn't talk to me on the phone. So I sent her an email and, sent her 2 emails the same day, one of which the district had, failed to pay us the money they're supposed to pay us on August 15th and September 15th. And.
Which is basically our people, per pupil funding.
Yeah. But they get, they get it from the state. And, so the next day, she wrote back and said that they would make the transfer the next day. And then the other thing was this issue of the pro rata share. And she said, I can't remember the exact words, so I'm too busy to deal with this, or I'm not dealing with this, and eventually she will, but, it's just unfortunate that she's
But so in
not
the
capable.
meantime, we're
She's-
paying more.
Well, I haven't paid anything.
Have they billed us?
No, but in the agreement, they don't bill us, it's just in the agreement, but, the agreement is ambiguous about. So my plan is to go ahead and pay them once the amount of money that they owed us for the last 2 months clears, which should be this Friday.
So we've got
I'll
like.
go ahead and pay them for, the 2 months, and we'll just wait and, I'm happy to wait until the litigation is finished in November, and then we'll know the exact square feet, and we'll deal with it all at once.
Okay.
And last year as well, just
Right.
basically just need to do it. And when
Right.
she sent in an email in July when I first raised this to her the second time, that they would, make the adjustments necessary,
Retroactively.
credit us back, so
Okay.
we'll just wait.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because, they were charging us for garbage service, but we actually contract our own garbage service.
Yeah, that's utilities, and the utilities, I haven't paid the utility bills, and she hasn't brought it up again, so.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, any public comment on this item?
I just have a question. Were they going to claim the space at the other campus was ours and then also charge us for that, even if we didn't use it?
Well, I think that's not a part of the calculation right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think if we don't use it, we won't use it, and then we won't pay for it.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
I have a question about your email to the district, Sharon, which stated that you guys didn't get the proper form from the district before you signed the FUA. And from what I understand, the district did send that to your attorneys, but maybe you guys didn't receive it. Can you comment on that?
That's not actually what my email said, was we actually were emailing the current form back and forth in our negotiations, which was the form that existed last year and that we had been talking about all year and in our negotiations. And that had been going back and forth, but in the final signed copy, they didn't send the attachments.
Did your attorneys get that attachment?
So, well, that one had been going back and forth between us.
Between the
in
attorneys.
in the week prior.
It's in the write-up, you probably didn't read it.
I did read it, yeah.
Okay.
I
Well,
did
what
read
is it you don't understand about
Well, I was under the impression your attorneys got the form, but maybe you
it?
guys.
That is an incorrect impression.
Oh, it is.
Our attorneys, like us, were operating under the assumption
But the
that
form we've been sending back and forth.
that when you say attached is exhibit C, that that has to be something that somebody has seen, and it wasn't. That was a complete surprise to our attorneys as it was to us. And the form that the district eventually settled on, I mean, there was a form they sent us on after the agreement was signed. That's not the form that they presented that form to the board meeting the next Tuesday. At the board meeting, they removed 3 parts of that form. And then when they eventually got around to publishing it, it's not the form the board approved. It's a form that they have removed several other parts. So, no, our attorney, if your question is that our attorney see their new form, the answer is no, and there was never any conversation between attorneys about the new form. All the conversation, we proposed, we sent them 2 agreements since they weren't responding and there was gonna be no agreement, we executed 2 agreements and sent it to them and said, pick. And they picked last year's agreement, but they took some elements from the other one we sent them, one of which was using the current Exhibit C.
Was there something in the new one that you guys didn't like?
There were quite a few things in the new one we didn't like, so we tried to come up with a compromise. For example, they still wanted to use last year's form, but they wanted to make it worse for us, so that was not gonna work. There were many things in the agreement we didn't like.
In the FUA, it says that, and you signed the FUA, that you would agree to the form that's consistent with what the district used. That was the.
No, it does not say that. It says, it says the
consistent with the
current,
district.
it says the current form.
Consistent with the district.
Yeah.
And that was
That
the
was
form
as of
that
the date,
existed at
as
the
of the
time they
date that
signed.
existed, that was, and attached is Exhibit C.
And
The
we had,
form is attached as Exhibit C. You can't pretend that a form that we have never seen and is in fact not district policy yet can be attached retroactively.
Would you mind telling the public what issues you have with the new form that you didn't like the district had? I'm just curious, because I never got that information. I was just kind of curious what.
Well,
what you didn't like
I
about it.
think the tone of the form treats parents as if they're possible criminals. And I think that's not a tone that we're gonna take with our parents.
Is that the stuff they took out of the agreement?
They didn't take it all out.
Oh, okay.
There's still references to the district attorney, you know.
and these are changes to the form after we signed the agreement.
Right.
So I think that to me doesn't sound like an act of good faith when you sign an agreement based upon a premise of using one form, and then after the agreement's signed, that form is changed completely, and then that new form is changed multiple times. And then we also have families who registered at White Hill and registered here, and they signed a form for the district, and the sign that they find. That form was the same one that was used last year. So, what's to keep the district from just continually changing the form?
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
Right. And the majority of the people who are attending district schools use the old form. It would only be people who registered after they finalized their
No,
form.
they've told many different stories about that.
Anyway, we agreed to the form that existed at the time that we signed the agreement, and we can't agree to sign, to attach a form that has had multiple versions of changes that we never saw at the time we signed the agreement. So they have the opportunity to work with us again next year, and if
You know,
whatever their form is they want to propose next year, we will negotiate, but right now we
like
know one.
a hypothetical for you, that we start collecting these forms, and then we get an email from the district saying we've changed the form. And then we have to go back to our families and say, oh, it's hard to get from 160 families, all these forms. And then for that form to be changed, what do we do then?
And we're not gonna agree to a form that says our parents have to produce, our parents who are divorced have to produce custody documents.
surprised anybody else would agree to that. Okay, let's keep on moving.
I just have a question, for the forms for next year, I know that the district has contracted with this company that's very controversial. Is our data gonna be handed over to that company as a way of verifying?
You know, the district is, you know, that company is not involved in our relationship with the district. What the district does with our
I'm just
parents,
wondering.
with our parents' names is not under our control. But
But they can't submit them to a company that
they can do whatever they, you know.
They don't have permission from our families
They don't have
to do
permission.
that.
And so they'll, what they do, they'll be doing at their risk. And in my opinion, what's gonna happen is, you know, they challenged, last year, they challenged, it came down to, you know, first they challenged, I think the number in the next door is 17. They challenged 17 families. I don't remember the exact number, but I think of the 17, 15 are free and reduced price lunch. Well, that's not surprising, you know, because those are people who don't own homes. And so, when they run if they put our names into that database, they're gonna kick out the free and reduced price lunch families again. And then, you know, if you know, the state law doesn't really, state law says, the Attorney General says, if they believe that a document that they've received is fraudulent, the next thing they should do is go ask for another document. So, I think we just have a simple relationship with them, and just, we have this facilities use agreement that says we're gonna do something, we're gonna do it, and then whatever they're gonna do, they're gonna do. And we really can't control that. And,
And there's no way for us to monitor.
and there's no way for us to monitor, they're just, you know, they just submit names into it. I mean, they have probably submitted everybody's names in the district already, including all of our kids.
So, and we have no control over that, like we can't say,
No.
I don't want you to give my
No.
information to this company?
No, and I think the reality is I don't personally think that, submitting, that process is gonna creates any risk for anybody. Whether or not it has a discouraging effect on non-documented immigrants is another question, but I don't think it's gonna have any consequences for them, other than non-documented people are nervous these days. So knowing they're doing that.
Well, they're more likely not to send their kids to school.
Right.